What a startling admission of complete failure from the uni party that's destroying this country. A startling admission of failure. Breaking news this morning, but it's actually not breaking news, but breaking news this morning. The New South Wales government is stepping in to delay the closure of the Eraring coal-fired power station, one of Australia's largest power stations. When I go back to remembering when the New South Wales Labor government came into power a couple of years ago, the very first notice that came from that party, before it was sworn into government, immediately after the election, it was that the Energy Minister at the time was questioning the closure of Eraring Power Station before the government was even sworn in. I think it was actually on the night of the election result. They hadn't informed government. They were flagging this. It was preemptive because they knew what was coming. We cannot survive without coal. But what this is a startling admission that net zero is completely failing. It's suicide. Have a look at this report from Tom Connell on Sky News this morning.
Welcome back to First Edition. Let's begin with some breaking news this half hour.
Well, Tom's not there, I guess, so we've got a problem with the clip. But what he said was to keep what she said, the Energy Minister said, to keep the lights on and prices down, that's electricity prices down, we need to keep coal-fired power on. To keep the prices down and to keep the lights on, we need to keep coal-fired power on. How is that?
This work,
that's what the Energy
the
Minister
latest
said.
analysis from the energy market operator says that we have reliability gaps coming to us from 2025 to 2027. We have to keep the lights on and prices down so that we can make sure that renewable energy and storage and firming is in place as we manage the exit and the much needed exit of coal-fired power.
The much needed exit of coal-fired power. We'll come back to that one. It's not needed at all. We need coal, not an exit coal. So what it shows is that it's time to abandon the net zero pipe dream. It is just a pipe dream. It's actually turning into a nightmare for our country, for small business in particular, and for workers. Australia simply cannot run the grid off wind and solar. That's abundantly clear. And she mentioned reliability risks. What's holding the grid together right now? Barely anything. Sticky tape. That's what's holding the grid together. With the most wind, solar and batteries on the grid than ever before, our prices went up 15% last year and are now far higher than at any time in the past. Australia used to have coal-fired power stations. That's why aluminium smelters went to the Hunter Valley, came to Western Australia. Coal-fired power gave us the cheapest power in the world, and that was essential for aluminium smelting because it uses so much electricity. As a boy, I cycled to Kurri Kurri High School in the Hunter Valley. I went past the Alcan smelter, which was being built at the time. It's gone, shut, kaput, because they're destroying the electricity prices. Australian electricity has gone from being the cheapest in the world to amongst the most expensive in the world because of wind, solar, and batteries. That's why. And what we've got here is taxpayers and electricity users paying to close Eraring. And now they're paying to keep it open again. This is complete rubbish. They're treating you with complete disdain. They're treating us all with complete disdain. They're basically giving us the middle finger. That's what they're doing to us. So I'll take questions in a minute. I only want to be on for about 10 or 15 minutes. I've got quite a bit on today. I'm going to read you some quotes from the Australian newspaper article, and the headline is, New South Wales' largest coal power station extended by at least 2 years. So they're saying 2 years, but it could be 4 years. So this is a complete admission of failure. Here we go from the Australian. Australia's largest electricity retailer may receive compensation if Eraring makes a loss. Oh, really? This figure is capped at $225 million a year. If Eraring makes a profit, Origin Energy may have to pay New South Wales up to $40 million. The compensation scheme runs only during 2026 and 2027. The cheapest power in Australia is hydro. where we've got water, but we haven't got water in many places. So the cheapest power by far in Australia is coal, way cheaper than solar and wind. So we are now hindering through the national electricity market, which is really a national electricity racket. We're hindering the operation of coal-fired power stations, penalising them so they draw enormous costs, which will put them above solar and wind. And solar and wind, in addition, have subsidies. This is what's going on in our country at your expense. Another quote, paragraph from The Australian. Environmental voters are unlikely to welcome taxpayers underwriting Eraring, but authorities have accepted they had little choice amid concerns of blackouts and price rises should it allow Eraring to close. They had little choice. Choice is blackouts with more solar and wind or keep coal going. That's no choice. They're backing themselves into a corner. They're backing us into a corner. When I say us, the taxpayers and electricity users of Australia. Another quote. The Australian Energy Market Operator earlier this week warned New South Wales was facing insufficient reserves of electricity generation from 2025. Hell, that's next year. We're here, ladies and gentlemen. We are here on the edge of the cliff. And by the way, it's not a national electricity market that John Howard's government created back in 1990 and early 2000s. It's a national electricity racket. It's not a market. People have got so restricted by the rules that it's a national electricity racket. And what they're doing is they're stealing money from electricity users and taxpayers. It's a big transfer of wealth. More quotes from The Australian. Support for Eraring is also unpopular with Origin's rivals, Delta Electricity. I mean, you can't make stuff up. It is so funny, and it is going to be a stuff up. Delta Electricity, which operates a smaller neighbouring coal power station, earlier this month said using taxpayer funds to prolong Eraring is unpopular with Delta. Why wouldn't it be? Delta is getting shafted and Eraring getting a free ride. Using taxpayer funds to prolong Eraring amounted to financial reward for the company's mismanagement of the facility, says their competitor. Their competitor's getting shafted. That's not a market. That's a racket. Go on with The Australian. Others are sceptical about Origin's decision to close the plant. While the plant undeniably is losing money because of the national electricity racket and the bureaucrats' rules, senior market sources have suggested Origin needs the generation capacity to supply its 4 million customers and has an unfair advantage. I mean, what the hell is going on? They've created a monster. This is a complete sham. We'll continue with The Australian. The Eraring deal is the latest so-called closure deal governing the exit of a major coal power station, and it is unlikely to be the past. They're screwing themselves and backing themselves in the corner. And look, I can't, this is going to cause a lot of misery, so I shouldn't be laughing. But I can't help it. It's just incredible. You wouldn't write a script for a comedy this way. So such a deal has been used by Victoria in the past as the state Labor government struck deals with AGL Energy and Energy Australia to keep the state's two largest coal power stations open. There I go, I'm starting to laugh again. Energy Australia's Yallourn power station will close in 2028, while AGL's Loy Yang A will shutter in 2035, giving the state enough time to bring online sufficient quantities of renewable energy, solar and wind. The terms of both deals remain a closely guarded secret. A secret from the taxpayers who are paying the bloody money, from the taxpayers who are getting shafted, from the electricity users who are getting shafted by government lies in the Labor Party and the LNP. Why do I say and the LNP? Because every major climate and energy policy in this country, across the whole country, has been introduced by the Liberal Party. The Liberal Nationals have done it. Every major climate and energy policy has been introduced by the Liberals. And what comes along is the Labor government, when the next in power, comes in and ramps it up. They turbocharge it. Turbocharge the destruction of our country. We'll go on with the Australian. Australian law requires generators to give more than 3 years' notice if they intend to close a coal power station. The federal government and its state counterparts the federal government and its state counterparts can ill afford, however, to allow traditional coal power stations to shutter as new renewable energy sources prove stubbornly slow to develop. Stubbornly slow to develop. It's impossible to develop. I'll talk about that in a minute. Continue with the Australian. To avoid a repeat of the standoff, states are pushing for new powers that would allow them to determine when a coal generator can close. They want them to close, and now they want them to get permission to close. Though this so-called orderly exit framework, what a lot of bullshit, is opposed by the country's energy industry, citing mixed signals for developing replacement renewable energy sources. Why is there such a mess about this? Because there's never been justified data to justify the closure of these power stations, to justify the switch to solar and wind. Never been any data. People are just running blind, they're just running scared, they're just running from to and from and for media headlines. That's it. The whole thing is a complete cock-up. The Australian again. The deal is the latest in a series of closure agreements governing the closure of coal power stations as Australia struggles to build sufficient new renewable energy generation capacity to replace the transitional power source. This is bloody madness. We told everyone it would be madness 20 years ago. We've been telling people ever since. And, you know, one of the things that's happening is we're now facing a bleak future. Exactly as we predicted if these policies continued under Liberal, Labor, uni party, and that's exactly what's happening. This is the World Economic Forum and the United Nations dancing, calling the tune, and the uni party in this country dancing to the tune. This is madness. It is suicide. Let's see if anyone's got any questions up. What's up with nuclear stations being built on old coal station sites? That's what the Chinese are talking about doing as well. First of all, though, that's psychedelic. There's no need to shut the coal power stations. Coal is cheaper than nuclear at the moment, cheaper than nuclear. But if you're going to bring in a replacement because you believe in this not you, but for politicians who believe in the lies about carbon dioxide, then by all means put a nuclear on a coal-fired power station. Then you've got all the facilities there. You just have the heat source changed. That's all. So that'd be wonderful. No more new transmission lines, high-density power. The beauty of coal, the beauty of nuclear, is high energy density, which makes your cost per unit energy very, very low. Generates so much energy that the unit cost is low. Coal, wind and solar have very, very, very low energy density and a high capital cost. That's why the cost with limited production of energy and the high capital cost, you've got a very high unit cost of electricity. That's what's driving power bills. The other thing that's driving power bills is when you've got a coal-fired power station, a hydro power station, or a nuclear power station, you've got a lot of energy coming from a very concentrated source, very low land use, very small land use, and that needs very, very focused transmission lines just straight from the power plant to the major cities. With solar and wind, the transmission lines are scattered over enormous areas. They're far from the cities where the electricity is used, far from the factories where the electricity is used, far from the homes where the electricity is used. And so you've got a huge increase in transmission lines. And the transmission lines are a huge cost component of the electricity bill. So think about this. Solar and wind, on average, run for about 23% of their capacity, which means to have a stated capacity equal to a certain coal-fired power station or nuclear power station or hydro power station, you need 4 times that capacity installed just to get what the coal's got. And that means 4 times the transmission lines scattered and way more than 4 times the land area destroyed. But in critical times, when electricity is used the most, in the peak demand periods, which is early in the morning and late at evening when people come home, start cooking dinners, the solar and wind capacity factor is about 10%, which means that you need about 10 times the installed capacity just to get your 10%. 10 times the solar and wind means a huge area of land disturbed by solar and wind, turbines and panels. And it means a huge multiplier in terms of the area disturbed by transmission, and means a huge increase in costs. We are not even close to the number of solar and wind turbines and panels that we need. Not even close to the transmission. We have many things many solar and wind complexes, industrial sites that are not even connected to the grid yet. I mean, that's how stupid this politically driven fiasco is. They have no clue. You've got people like Bowen, Minister for Misery, Blackout Bowen, Chris Bowen, driving this country over a cliff, and you've got Albanese clapping along the way. This is complete bullshit. It is a complete lie. It's a fraud. It's based on a fraud. And I've got to about 15 minutes, and I think that was going to be my target because I've got to get back to other things. Well, one question, very good question. Deb Hudson. Hi, Malcolm. Do you think the extremely high migration intake, especially here in Sydney, has caused the backflip? Undoubtedly it has in part, but really what's causing it is the complete unreliability of net zero power. It is a complete corruption of science, a complete corruption of morality, complete corruption of parliament. It is a complete destruction of our country. The most important thing, apart from life itself, in modern civilization is energy. Cheap, reliable, secure, environmentally responsible. Coal, tick. Hydro, tick. Nuclear, tick. Wind and solar, disaster. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again tomorrow with another live stream where I'll catch up with last week's because there's a lot of things to talk about.